Um, so, welcome to the August 3rd Zoom meeting of the Telecom Advisory Committee. We have a special message from the city. The City of Easthampton would like to remind everyone that wearing your mask when you cannot maintain at least 6 feet of social distancing is still very important to prevent a surge of COVID-19 and the need to go back to stricter precautions. Please wear your mask, maintain your space, and wash your hands. This meeting is happening over Zoom remotely. There is no in-person attendance. And anyone can dial into this with the phone number area code 312-626-6799. I think that covers it. So I guess call to order. We've got Jason, Tom, Dan, Kevin, Stan, Tom too. No one's here for public speak. So let's go into the approval of minutes. Everybody have a chance to read the minutes Kevin prepared? Yes.
Yes, I did. I actually only just read them, and one thing that I caught was I was not in attendance at the last meeting, so I'd like to make a motion that that's amended in the minutes.
So motioned. Anyone second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Jason, do you approve this motion?
Approve. I approve.
Tom Peak?
Aye.
Dan?
Yeah. Aye.
Tom Malmesbury? Of course, you submitted the motion. Stan?
Yes.
And Kevin? Okay, motion is approved. We will amend the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes pending the correction?
You know what, actually, yeah, so moved.
Anyone second?
Second.
Stan? All right, let's go around again. Jason?
Aye.
Tom Peak?
Aye.
Dan? Tom Malmesbury?
I guess I abstained. I wasn't present to approve them.
Oh, of course. Thank you. Stan?
Aye.
And Kevin? Okay. Kevin, you're on mute, just so you know.
Did we ask Dan? Did you ask?
Yes, we did.
You did. Okay.
Unmuted.
Okay. So all in favor then. Motion is approved. So let's go on to the rest of our report. I'm going to share this screen here. We have a couple new sections that we got submitted. Jason sent over like the rest of section 4 as well as section 10.
Oh no, section 4 was complete except for Dan had put some comments in my original Google Doc, so those are in there, which you may not have if you grabbed them. And then section 10, which
section 10.
I had sent to you all, but Kevin was going to take a look at it. So, because Kevin and I were working on it, and I sent it to him late, so he didn't have that ability or that time.
Okay, that's good though. And then we also have a short section 11 and 12 from Tom. So thank you. So we can talk about these guys and let's do it. So what was it on section 4 that was changed?
Nothing. No, I just combined the two into, since I was working on those two sections, everything you have here should be everything that's in the document.
Okay.
You just said it was edited to include Dan's comments?
Yeah, there were some, well, no, I mean, Dan had put a bunch of comments in there as Google Doc comments, not as edits.
Okay.
So they'll need to be folded back in, which I'm happy to do and can resubmit for you to include in this notebook.
Okay.
So there's not, yeah, there's, I can, hold on, let me get out of this full screen. I can bring up his comments as we work through it. And then I can actually, sorry, let's see. Sorry, if you want to go ahead, I'll open my Google Doc up, and if there's a comment on a particular section, we can I can bring it up as we're working through it.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right. Let's go back to it then. We're gonna go to, I guess we'll check out section 10 then, our Easthampton user profiles. So our basic demographics, total population is 16,000. Is this here?
We filled in, so as we.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's good stuff. I actually think I have all that information.
Great. Yeah, I didn't have it, and I don't even know if some of this stuff exists, but I thought that it would be useful to have these numbers in the demographics section.
All right.
Question, are we more interested in total population or total homes in terms of subscribers? I mean, if there are 5 people living in a home, they'll still have 1 subscription.
We can get both of those in. I mean, if you want, I can populate this section. It'll take, like, I know where to get all of that census data. That's what I do for a day job.
Stan, I think primarily you're right. It is number of connections, you know, single family residences, multi-family rental.
Households, really.
But but I think it also, as we see in the internet usage, you know, that the more people that are in the house, you get this spike in number of devices and bandwidth needs and things like that. So I think it's useful to also have, obviously, the total population in town. But households, I think, is really the driver.
Right. Because, I mean, we probably will be offering various levels of service in terms of bandwidth, but they first have to have a subscription to our service, and then they can add on to it, you know, extra bandwidth. But I think the basic service.
I don't know what the service tiers, if there are any, would look like. Yeah, I don't know that we've, you know, gotten that far.
No, of course, of course.
Other towns we know.
I remember Westfield, they cautioned us to only offer 1 tier.
Yes, right.
The only one doing tiers was Greenfield.
Mhm.
All right. So internet usage.
So I don't know if you would get this. So I was basically, when Kevin and I discussed this, we talked about reusing the data from the slides. And I don't know if when you copy and pasted this, if the slides came over.
The slides were at the bottom of it. I didn't paste them in.
Okay. So these are all, I can go through them if you want. I'm happy to. Do you have that PDF handy
Yeah.
too? And I looked at the data again, and our data set hasn't really changed all that much since our original presentation. So
Here, I'm going to share the thing that you sent over. No, that's not the one. There it is. Okay. So, you see, this is all the document you sent over, but can everybody see that? So, I don't know what I'm looking at. What's survey respondents, provider? I mean, is the idea we're going to put this stuff, I figured this would be kind of an addendum that would put all the survey data As far as including it in the report, do we want to put the pictures of the slides and graphs in there?
I would.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's like, look, if there's if they're telling a story, then put them next to the text. If they're not part of the narrative, then you can put them in an appendix.
Great.
I'm just not sure how much narrative we need around this. And that would be something I'd look to you all for, like how much you think we need for this internet usage. I mean, we found those slides really provide the breakdown. We can certainly give a more detailed breakdown of the data, but those slides tell the story almost completely.
All right. I think that's cool. I can pop
The only one we didn't use, and I noted in the last bullet on section 2, is that we talked about switching the service, but we also asked another question about how likely you'd be to switch if you were to lose your bundle pricing, which I think is an important question given how much people would be foregoing to actually sign up for a new service offering. And I think it makes a pretty good case. That bundle pricing is not, in fact, like the end all be all for everyone.
All right. So let's go to user stories. In addition to our demographic data, we should present several user stories, which are basically composites of the survey data to create characters of typical Easthampton users. Some of the profiles we came up with would be the gamer, the streaming couple, the streaming family, a family of 4 or 5, with each member doing something different. You got remote workers and remote learners / teachers, and the FaceTiming grandparents.
I don't know if this is useful, but I think it's useful to sort of, and I don't even know if it's certainly a practice in software development, but I don't know if it's a practice in these kinds of documents to come up with these possible people without having any real like person to point, any true factual person to point at.
Well, do we have the data? I mean, this sounds like a little bit of work, but I do like the idea. Do we have enough, like, from the data, could you point to and say, you know, there were these people who responded to this question, and this question, which suggests that the way that they're interacting with the internet is like this sort of profile. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's, so I think you can get at that with the questions and how we ask them in the survey, especially around internet activity and ranking. Although I don't think we ask people to select all that apply, but I don't think we ask people to rank those activities. But the picture that emerges is that, you know, it's people working from home, it's in video conferencing, it's people streaming, and online gaming are like the 3 biggest uses.
How about online shopping?
Oh yeah, that falls under general internet
Okay,
use.
okay.
So, but this is certainly, if we took this survey now, I imagine like it would look different, or the way we ask the questions would look different. And certainly I think some of those, like the general use would certainly be still at the top, but a lot more of the video conferencing and on those other things were creeping up.
You know, a sort of path of least resistance, if this would be hard, would be to just talk about the data itself and say, here's, like, we ask people what they use their data for, or what they use the internet for, and here's what they said.
Right.
I love this idea. I'm just, you know.
No, that's fine. I think, yeah, we could definitely do that. Kevin, did you have something you wanted to add?
No, just what can you hear?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, just what we talked about earlier. I mean, this was pretty much a rough dump today, so I think it needs some editing. We probably don't need 8 kinds of user stories. I think 3 or 4 would suffice. And the same with the slides. I think we could judiciously choose a few, and I agreed with whoever made the comment that the full set of them, along with maybe more user comments from the meetings or from the poll, should be put at the end of the report.
I definitely think, I mean, given what we've experienced since March, I mean, the biggest use case for this, for the municipal broadband, is the remote worker and people who may, you know, may move here, and the students and the teachers. You know,
I think it's good to focus on those things. You know, you talk about that in the next paragraph a little too, which I think is good. So.
I think that's really the most important thing, given that what happened. Like I said, the Wi-Fi hotspots in the parking lot. I mean, it's a national story, but it seems crude that that's the best we can do as a community. And, you know, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Charter gave away, was it 60 or 90 days of free access, a free subscription to families with students.
Something like that.
Yeah. Which certainly helped, but didn't get people to the finish line for the year.
60 days. It was. Yeah.
And for businesses coming out of the epidemic lockdowns, they were only offering a free month.
Yeah, that's another user story I didn't even include, and I think it's just I wasn't thinking about it because we didn't get a huge number of business survey respondents, but that's certainly another type of user.
Yeah, I think I agree with Kevin. We probably don't need 8, but I think it makes sense. Some of these can be combined. It can be more like a paragraph, like some families do this percentage of respondents, and you know, such and such. And it will tie in with some of the other data we have from the graphs and the survey.
Yeah, and we can refer them to the survey results if people actually want to drill down and look at this stuff.
Yeah. I've been reading what you wrote down here. About the families too, and I guess I'll just read the whole paragraph here. During this pandemic and the resulting school and work closure, it's become clear we need a very fluid broadband infrastructure.
Sorry, that's really rough.
It's not, it's all right. It just needs to be refined. It's to
deal with cycles of lockdown and reopening. Yeah.
So, but here's where it really gets interesting. The fact that our school district, like many other school districts throughout the country, needed to set up Wi-Fi hotspots to address the basic needs of students that did not have internet access in their homes is one of the revealing stories of this pandemic. Any plan for a municipal broadband service must address the basic inequality and affordability around broadband internet and work to make it an affordable, reliable, basic utility alongside electricity, indoor plumbing, sewer service, and clean water. We cannot, as a community, believe that providing Wi-Fi hotspots in our school parking lots for students is equitable or defines equal access to public education. What occurred this past spring and what will likely occur this coming school year is a failure of government and public education at all levels, federal, state, and our local school district and municipal government. It is biting, and it is so true.
It is, but
editorial. It may be a little bit too editorial.
Yeah, I think so, because I mean, we're looking for support from some of those people you just trashed.
We're gonna make it a little sugary sweet.
So we can clean that up a little bit, but I totally agree with what you're saying here.
Yeah.
My strategy's always been to denigrate and then ask for support. It's usually worked.
Oh, that is good.
Yeah, I think that's your op-ed in support of this program.
Yeah.
That's right. That probably belonged in the recommendations section at the end. But that's right. I think it's good to mention it here, and just frame it in light of what's happened the last few months. So,
I mean, I can't imagine if we go all remote, how you're going to guarantee, like, is the school district going to foot the bill for students to have, the students that don't have internet access? Are they going to work with charter, or, if these are choicing in students from another district, are they going to work with whatever provider they have? These are all questions that I don't think anybody has. We're still haggling. I mean, I just came from a school committee working group meeting, and they're still, that thing is so muddy. It's like, it's crazy, the plans over there. So
I think it speaks to what you're kind of saying here, is that we need to change the way that we look at internet. It's not a luxury. It is something that is vital to each household, and it should be a utility. And, the old excuse saying like, oh, anybody can go to the library, it's just not realistic. It's not fair, and it's completely out of touch.
Go to the library when the library is closed. You also can't go to a parking lot at 8 o'clock at night in the middle of winter, and like, you can imagine all kinds of scenarios with people in their car, like driving somewhere, and then the first time something happens in one of those parking lots, to like somebody gets robbed of their computer or something, like, it's.
Or they get a ticket for running their car to keep warm while they're using the internet.
Yeah, you're not supposed to be idling. So
Right. Yeah.
It's not going to
Or
work.
somebody sets up a phishing scheme and starts, these parking lots, trolling them to do whatever. I don't know. It's a lot different. It's strange to see how different the focus for me has become for this service from where we started in 2018 to now. Like, it was like, how are we going to make our case for this?
Yeah.
If you wanted to make a case for it, and now it's like, well, it doesn't really, the case has been made through lived experience.
Yeah.
So here's an idea just a suggestion that I have, because I really like this content, although again, I might pare it down just a little bit, but what if we could probably get the general thrust of this in actually the benefits section, where we could say, like, rather than the user profile, which we could keep kind of a little dry, we could say, because this is a benefit that I didn't think of, is, having control over our own internet means that we have a certain amount of policy control in situations where equity is a concern or where access is a concern. The control that we don't currently have. If we decided, I actually wonder how, like, Whip City Fiber or South Hadley's, internet or whatever, how any of those guys are dealing with situations where they might have students, like, is the school district working with the MLP to make sure that that those kids have, because they could, right? I don't know. It's just something to think about, that, like, it gives you a certain amount of control over how you handle a situation like that.
Right. It makes it certainly a lot easier to go fully remote than it does, like, suddenly having to think about all the machinery of dealing with a corporation to see if you can get discounted or subsidized access.
The 3 MLPs we visited, I think Greenfield was the only one addressing that, because they had those Wi-Fi hotspots again, and that was their way of making it available to people who might not be able to afford the service. I'm not sure how well that was working out. I think at one point somebody said they were having problems with that. It might have been Greg Howe.
Yeah, well, sure, but I mean, yeah, no doubt. But I still do think that there's, like, in a time like this, there's got to be things that you could think to do, ways that you figure out some sort of an understanding between the district and the MLP. And
I think it should be in the benefits section, just like you said, you know, and then we could keep this basically just these, you know, data from the user survey. So, but it definitely needs to be said somewhere in the document. I think we all kind of agree on that.
Yeah, please feel free to like take this apart and move it to whatever, to whatever sections it best helps. So.
And as far as the benefits section also, we somehow should tie it in with the announcement that Ashley made this month about providing Chromebooks for every student and teacher in the district, but without internet, they're useless.
that's a good point. Is someone like, are we jotting these down somewhere?
We're recording it.
Well, yeah, sure. We could just watch it later. But I
Somebody,
have found that's not actually an
I take
efficient
my
way to
notes
take
physically.
notes. Okay.
I take notes physically, yeah. But all right, let's take a look at benefits. We could definitely add that to it. So first and foremost, it is the belief of the committee that better internet access for Easthampton's residents is a benefit in and of itself.
So just before we say that, anything that I say is the belief of the committee that is not the belief of someone on the committee, please object. But none of this seemed controversial, but if I'm wrong, speak up.
Okay. As residents' personal and professional lives come to rely more and more on connectivity to the internet, stronger connections will help households and businesses to access the services and amenities that they need. If the city can supply faster, more reliable internet to residents at a reasonable price, this in and of itself is a positive thing. The result of the 2019 referendum on the establishment of a municipal light plant could be interpreted as a message that Easthampton sees this as something that they want. Was it Easthamptoners?
I think I meant to say Easthampton's residents. I don't know why that word went missing. I wrote it at like midnight. I'm sorry, guys.
are we Easthamptoners or are we ites?
I don't know.
The eternal debate.
I've never heard the official like Easthampton denim.
Easties. So I think at the end of this paragraph would be a good place to add the comments that Jason made in section 10 too. You know, we could segue right into that from what you're saying. It's a good lead.
Okay.
All right.
Beyond the basic good of supplying the city with faster internet, a fiber optic network could unlock certain economic development opportunities. Industries, including software, manufacturing, healthcare, and media, have come to rely more and more heavily on fast and stable internet connections. Having such a connection available will likely make Easthampton a more attractive location for some of these businesses. It also may be increasingly difficult to make the case for Easthampton to those businesses if fiber continues to be rolled out in neighboring communities, but not here.
Yep, that's great.
Maybe increasingly for Easthampton to make the case. Yeah, that last sentence needs editing, but I like it.
The potential economic benefits are not restricted to business. Right now, Easthampton has a relatively robust real estate market, but nothing is a given moving forward. Even as the committee was formed, more and more American workers were working remotely. That trend accelerated dramatically following the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic. And while it is unclear at this time how that will affect the nature of work after the end of the pandemic, it is certainly true that many organizations have built technological and cultural structures to allow for work from home, which were not there before and may not be fully disassembled after. At a minimum, many potential home buyers or renters may look for properties where they can work from home when doing so is convenient. Like with businesses, the presence of fast, reliable, affordable internet will likely play a role in the decision-making process for many households.
Can I just, I'm sorry, this is off topic. So I just had a thought. So everybody's talking about remote school this fall and maybe for the full year. And everybody's thinking that this is going to be a given, like it's just going to happen. But nobody's wondering if if you suddenly have over 1,000 students who might be located in certain dense neighborhoods, is the bandwidth going to be there? Especially when you, like, some of the schedules I've seen are like 3 or 4 Zoom calls a day. And if suddenly you have 1,000 kids all Zooming in, is Charter's infrastructure going to be capable of handling that? I mean, it may be a simple yes or no, but like everybody's just thinking like, oh, we can go with what we got and that'll be fine. Nobody's saying technically, is it possible to have that many users along with all your remote workers who are suddenly doing the same thing?
I think to me, it would make sense. I mean, what you're saying, even if it can accommodate what we need right now, if it could, and who knows, you know, there's a time when we're going to need more bandwidth than what we've got, and it's coming fast. Our usage grows exponentially, and the copper infrastructure is just not going to hold up forever. It was built
It's
in
going to be a stress test that I don't
30
think
years
we've
ago.
seen.
Right.
You know, because the stuff in the spring there was no accountability and there was no real, it wasn't really set up with the rigor that they're looking to put in place for the fall, where you've got multiple check-ins a day with entire classes over Zoom. You've got kids streaming instruction on YouTube and live. You know, that coupled with Williston, if they're still in session, I just wonder what it's going to be a test of this infrastructure this fall.
The other thing is, you know, we're seeing tremendous growth in telemedicine.
Yeah.
And my expectation is that even when the pandemic is over, this will continue to be a fairly robust business area that's going to require internet. I mean, I know there's one company that's starting up right now that plans to offer concierge medicine through internet connection, including giving their clients remote devices that they can use in their homes that will automatically report medical results to these doctors. So, I mean, I think that's something we really haven't spoken about a lot, but I have a feeling that's not going to go away even when we have a vaccine.
Right. I think that's worth mentioning in this section too, just like what Jason's talking about, because they're both still kind of echoing in people's ears how important these services have become.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
if we're talking about, like, let's break the, I think there's 2 different conversations that sort of are happening here, and they're both important. They should both be here, but maybe in different sections. One of them is, how would we benefit from local control over this infrastructure? Right. And if we're talking about kids whose families cannot afford this and they're stuck home during a pandemic and we got to figure out how they get those resources, that is a question that, like, I mean, a profit maximizing company based out of Philadelphia or wherever, I want to say Philly, maybe I'm wrong. Like, they have no reason to, I mean, they might do the right thing, they might not, but they have no real reason to care. They're not accountable to hear. Whereas an MLP might be. And so, you know, subject to financial considerations, there's a possibility you could get a more reasonable response. And that's cool. So there's that right there. That's one aspect of this. There's a separate conversation about what are the needs of people going to be going forward, which is sort of what Stan's going to in a little bit of this other stuff about, like, you know, like, just as more people work from home, as there's all this remote stuff, as telemedicine, all this stuff, even after the pandemic, there's going to be a lot there. I think that probably makes sense in background information or something for us to write a couple paragraphs, to the extent that we don't have it already, about the increased demand for bandwidth, and especially because this wasn't going on when we started writing this report, about how COVID has played into that. So that to me is an important thing that we need to write about. It might not be in the benefits section other than just us saying, as we've established, people are going to need more bandwidth. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm looking at the outline right here, and there's somewhere in the background information we can fit that. And I agree, we should try to keep that separate from the benefits to the city. So,
Or maybe it's its own section. I mean, I don't care, but I feel like that's something we need to establish. Benefits and risks, this is near the conclusion, right? We need to be establishing up front that, like, whether coax cable is doing an okay job now or not is really not the point. Like, we have refrigerators now that are connected to the internet. Like, this is just going to keep going.
Mhm.
Can I ask a question? This is sort of a half-formed thought, but has anybody become a student of like the 1918 pandemic? Does anybody know how long after that pandemic sort of the changes that were instituted during it lasted before people either returned to something or just stayed? I'm just wondering, like, if you can make an analogy.
it was at least 2 or 3 years before things even started to get back to normal from that.
Yeah,
So
Like,
there
what
was
are we
2 or
looking-
3 waves.
right. What are we looking at in terms of like potentially, obviously this is going to change everybody's behavior in a short-term way, but then there are going to be longer-term changes and things like I have a therapist who gave up his office and just does telemedicine now. He'll probably never rent an office again. That's like one of those changes that may sort of ripple through medicine. So yeah, I'm just wondering if there's a lesson to be learned, or like, has anybody ever looked at that? What
Not
happened?
me.
What changed?
Yeah.
Okay, never mind.
One thing that I'm missing from this is any mention of net neutrality. And I don't know how important it is. It seems like an important thing to me, but
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, it was in the outline. Network neutrality and self-governance is the section.
Oh, it sure is.
Yep.
Um, yep.
So,
I should
Remember, that
put that in
seems
there.
quaint.
Yep.
Net neutrality seems
Okay.
quaint now, even though it's really important.
yeah.
all right, we can fit that in here somewhere.
Yeah.
Are there-
God, I actually I like sat down and was like, now I need a sentence about net neutrality. And then something called me away and I came back and just kept writing and never did it.
It's all right.
But yeah, that needs to be in there.
What other things are there any other things people are thinking about that maybe belong in the benefit section that we're not seeing?
Well, I mean, do we want to talk about the fact that without internet communications, the mayor would not be able to be holding her weekly town halls and addressing the entire community and letting them know what's going on, letting them ask questions of her. I mean, this is something that we couldn't be doing without internet.
Well, that's true, but nobody's denying the importance of the internet. I mean, the question is, why does taking out a bunch of debt for this infrastructure make more sense? And she's currently doing that on the existing infrastructure. So I don't know if that's like,
Okay, you're right.
I mean, it's interesting. I think maybe the only point towards that would be that, in the face of this pandemic, we've all, like, the only way we're getting this sort of central community or this way of interacting is via the internet. And that has become critical. There's no billboards, there's no nothing in town that everybody gathers around. It's Facebook and other outlets. So, but that in of itself has nothing to do with other than the local control aspect.
right. Which again, I think if we flesh out the background or even add a new sort of chapter, I don't know what we'd call it, but if we put something in there where we really say, like, the internet is becoming more and more important, and look at how crazy this year has been. Could you imagine without the internet? Like, and with that said, that's why it's important that we have really good internet and local control over it is important too, because we rely on this. It's more critical by the day. It's not a luxury for gamers or whatever.
Yeah, it might be right. Like Minecraft runs really fast on a fiber network. I wonder if it would be interesting to add this into the history of the group, because we obviously started under different conditions than we're ending with. And it's sort of some of the things, like I said earlier, some of the things we'd have to make arguments for, the argument's been made for us already. And we just have to restate it and point at the experience.
I'm not sure it belongs in there. You know, that was more a history and mission of the committee thing. But,
I'm almost wondering if
Yep.
it does make sense to just put a new section in called like
Yeah.
importance of internet connectivity to Easthampton residents. It's clunky, but you get what I'm saying.
right. I'm wondering if there isn't some way to put this in the Easthampton user profiles, you know? The
Lesson
doctor
from
over-
COVID.
Huh? Yeah, or the doctor over at Valley Med that's doing a lot more telemedicine now or something like that. And it would be right before the benefits if we put it in there. So it's just a thought, but I think there's a few places that we can stitch this into where it
I
would.
mean, it could also
serve
be in
our
the
purposes.
executive summary. It could be its own paragraph in the executive summary.
Yeah,
Like,
We could reference it at least.
yeah, like this
you're right.
clearly in the face of this pandemic, like the conversation is now focused on this, not whether or not it's important to have a reliable, fast broadband infrastructure, but like when you're going to get it.
Right.
Um,
I kind of like the idea actually of putting it in, well, I don't know. User profiles makes a certain amount of sense where we could say, but it is kind of a separate thing from user profiles. It's like, I don't know.
It's a hard one because that's kind of tied in with the survey and we're kind of inventing, you know, user
Yeah.
profiles here. So I think the point is it's worth including this, and when the final editing gets done by that committee or subcommittee, then, you know, we'll fit it into one of those sections.
yeah, I think it'll become obvious once there's some polishing.
Right.
some
The
editing.
document, yeah, the document's going to need a few rewrites, I think, to make it read a little more easy. Right now, we've got a lot of extra data in here and a lot of repetitive data. So the final editing session probably won't be a 5-minute meeting.
Oh. Right.
So, next paragraph.
Yeah, so the last paragraph here. There may also be a case to be made for the value of shifting a fairly substantial monthly expenditure for households in Easthampton from a national entity to a local one. While the first priority of an MLP must be to pay down its bonds and maintain reserves for future repairs and upgrades, a local municipal entity is much more likely to have the best interests of the city and its residents in mind when it makes its business decisions.
So this is where I would expand upon this to talk about what Jason's saying and saying, for example, as we're seeing right now with COVID, there's an issue with kids not being able to get,
Yeah.
you know, and so an entity like this would probably be in a much better position to negotiate something with the school district to make sure that those kids are connected than.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
The other thing I would mention at the end of that, Tom, is it also might generate revenue one day for the city. You know,
Yeah.
if this thing is
Yeah.
successful and we actually start making money. So it's at least worth mentioning, I think, as a benefit.
Yeah, I went back and forth, and I actually decided not to include. I could include that, but I didn't, just because I know that like among MLPs, there's a certain amount of prickliness about the idea of them being money makers for the
This
city.
is true. Yeah.
If it's operating at a profit, maybe we just shouldn't be charging people so much, or you know, maybe that means that there's upgrades that they should be investing in. Like, it's totally possible that it could be, you know, at least set up in a situation where like they become a sponsor of the library and
Right.
Right.
something like that. Like, it's absolutely possible that there's like, yeah, once it's paid off, there's going to be money and what you do, there's options.
Yeah.
And I could have speculated there, and I decided not to. And now I'm
No, I agree with you now that you brought that up. I mean, both Westfield and South Hadley were basically staying away from that, mostly because they're reinvesting any revenue back into the business.
Yeah, it would be horrible if somebody latched onto that and then this happened and then
Yep.
they came back in a couple of years and like, where's this profit that you were
Right.
talking about that was going to come back to the city? And we
That's
thought
really for the city officers to, decide that anyway. So we shouldn't be putting words in people's mouths.
if they run into that, that's a good problem to have, right? Like,
Yep.
oh, we have too much money. What do we do?
Yeah.
That's not a problem the city of Easthampton is used to having. So, but it could be a long time before, depending on how it's structured and who's willing to lend money, it could be a long time before the bond is paid down.
Yeah. Right.
All right.
All right, let's check out risks. Let's see here.
It's kind of minimalistic. So if there's things you want to add on,
Yeah, I thought this part needed to be expanded, but I don't have anything new right now.
it really is kind of just the one big risk, though, right? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
is like if it doesn't make
Money.
enough money, then
Right.
you bonded for a thing that's not paying for itself, and what do you do then?
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah. I'll wait until you get to the last paragraph because.
All right, cool.
Yeah. I have a
So are we
comment or
gonna
two
go
about
through
that.
this?
Yeah, let's go through it. The greatest risk involved in creating a public internet utility is involved in the bonding. While the exact mechanics might vary, most cities have taken on a substantial amount of debt to build these networks out with the understanding that the revenue from the network would pay for the bond. Any sort of issue which could prevent the network from generating the revenue to pay down that bond would obviously be problematic from the city's perspective. Two examples of this could be if the interest in switching to the new municipal internet was far lower than expected, or if a new technology emerged which took with it a large share of the customer base. Once the bond payment is settled, the risk involved from the point of view of the city falls substantially. If, to continue the example from above, a competing technology entered the market that competed against the fiber network or even rendered it obsolete, the potential liability to the city would be substantially diminished if that occurred after the point that the bond was completely paid off. Okay. Beyond the risk involved with bonding, a fiber network would carry with it the usual risks associated with any major project in the city. The standard costs and risks involved with bringing on any additional employees or equipment will continue. Moreover, in order for the network to remain functional and competitive, systems will need to be put in place to ensure that the system receives timely maintenance and upgrades.
I think the point I wanted to make here on that last paragraph is if we do a turnkey service with one of the possible vendors, such as Westfield or South Hadley, then a lot of that stuff is built in, so it might be worth mentioning that. So, any thoughts?
Sure. I mean, right? If you do that, actually is a good point. You could say some of that could be mitigated by.
Yep. Yeah.
Uh,
I don't think we go into it too much, but something, it could be mitigated by that along those lines would be good there. So,
I mean, we talked to, I forget their name right now, but the company.
Media One,
Matrix One, I think.
Matrix One. Yep.
Yeah, and they were like, "Oh, we'll basically pay for all of it except for your setup costs,
Right.
which is like $1.5 million, and you can buy it from us, at
Yeah.
a declining rate over time."
Yeah, that's like the easiest solution, but I wouldn't say the best solution. But I was thinking more of both Westfield and South Hadley said, they would at least be amendable to offering that kind of service to us. So,
Right.
it's worth mentioning it, and we'd have more control over it than we do with Matrix One.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. But like if you weren't getting the installations as fast as you wanted, and you decide to hire a couple guys to just do the fiber, installations. Well, those are municipal employees and will have the same benefits as other municipal employees. So, even if you just hire one person to because there's going to have to be someone somewhere whose job it is to make sure that like the MLP, like say that we partner with Westfield or South Hadley or something like that.
Right.
Still got to be somebody who, I mean, maybe this is the board, but there's got to be someone in the city who's actually the point of contact between the city and that MLP, and whose job it is to actually determine on an ongoing basis whether that partnership is still in the best interest of Easthampton and our MLP, right? Like, because we would be the one buying, we'd be the one owning the infrastructure. Someone else could operate the infrastructure, and that's great.
Right.
But
I think that's what Westfield has addressed, was setting up a municipal light board, basically to oversee whatever services they're offering. So Easthampton could also explore that.
Yeah, I really see there needing to be some kind of director and even maybe like multiple positions, like a marketing. I mean, this could be like a marketing person / sales rep / training person, and then like an overseeing director. But yeah, who knows? These are all risks that,
A lot of this is theoretical, and it's so varied because we don't have like a solid proposed business plan. And I think that's one of the next steps that, we'll talk about in conclusions and recommendations. But like, it could be as little as, one person maybe that is on city payroll, or it could be like a large department where we end up, over time, we have people out on the road installing and doing repairs that are city employees of the network and completely managing it in-house. I mean, the difference between the two it's huge in that regard.
We should at least present the two scenarios, and then maybe in the last section, recommendations, we could give an indication. But, I'm not so, maybe we just present the scenarios, and then the city council and the mayor can take it from there.
Does anybody have a strong opinion on what would be the better of those two theoreticals if we had absolutely minimal involvement or maximum involvement?
Somewhat related to that, I think in this risks, it should, we've been talking about like the Matrix 1 model, the partnership model, and the straight up, MLP operating model. Should we divide this into the risks of each? Rather than in a narrative, just have the risk section be the risks of partnering with a turnkey solution, the risks of partnering with a partner, the risks of fully establishing an MLP with all the city infrastructure that would, be regulated in that scenario.
I think at least a paragraph here, talking about those scenarios would be good.
I think that's a good idea.
I all those models, and then we're sort of muddling the risks. We should, whichever way we've laid out models in previous sections, we should sort of carry that same structure through in the maybe folding backwards into the benefits, or having the benefits of a turnkey solution, the benefits of a partnership, the benefits of owning it outright.
Yeah, I like that a lot. So we have our three models: fully owned and operated, partnered with other MLPs, and then public-private partnership, which would be the Matrix group.
And to Tom's point of, how does this benefit the city? Well, maybe, the school board could have much more sway with a municipally operated light board, where we may have more trouble doing that with South Hadley or Westfield saying, our school board wants free access for students under this income level. We may not have that much sway as a partner. And with a turnkey solution, they may say that's not in our model at all,
Or they'd want their share, but we could, pass.
Exactly. I'm just saying, I don't know what the structure would be, but, we could evaluate all benefits and all risks under those three lights, and that would be another way, for the city council or the mayor to say, oh, this seems to have more benefits and less risks if we're fully operating it ourselves, and just to sort of give them the three case scenarios. We all sort of innately understand after being on the board, some of you much longer than me, we sort of have that understanding in the language or writing, but we have to remember this will be the first view for some people on this to really walk them through those models.
That's a great point.
Yep. That is a good point.
Sort of along those lines too, is there any need to discuss risks involved in different MLP models? So if you've got a mayoral appointee versus a voted board,
I mean, they're not going to be deciding that on the basis of this report. I think that
Right.
the modeling and the future research, we presented that those were different forms.
Yep.
I don't think it's in our purview or expertise to evaluate the risks of those models. That would be, there's going to be more phases of this research. So we can give them the questions that they'll then want the answers to,
There you go.
to me anyway. This doesn't have to be a comprehensive document. It's sort of a guidance
Right.
anyway.
Agreed.
I think that's a good point. So I can take that feedback and take another crack at this.
Okay.
Have something that's a little bit more comprehensive for
No,
next.
and I think all the information you have in there is great. It's just, that may just be a way for us to hang it all together a little more
Yeah.
coherently, section to section, to sort of.
I
tie
agree.
our
I totally agree. It felt like it was missing something, and now I feel like
Well, like I said, I think you have all the information in there, and now it'll help you disambiguate it a little and read through. So, all good.
It is.
And the other thing I will do for the user profiles, Jason, I'll pull like the points the bullets that you had about like population, households, breakdown,
Okay.
whatever. I'll do all that. So, and I'll take another stab at these sections. So, just when we're talking next steps, I'm volunteering for all that stuff right now.
All right. I'll actually try to edit down the user stories and the internet usage if you want, and then I can go through all the comments that we got from that and pull out however many, 5 or 6, that seem to represent what everybody's talking about.
Yep, I don't know if everybody saw that because it was too much for
40 pages worth.
Yeah, there were 40 pages of comments on those open-ended questions we had at the end about additional feedback. And so there might be some nuggets in there that we could sprinkle in the report. There may be nothing. It was like, one was expletive charter, that's of limited value.
That should be the title of the report.
Expletive charter.
I'm kidding, of course.
Okay. So this is great. I'm going to be able to put a good amount of work into refining some of the language that we have so far in this report. Probably work on this executive summary this week as well as anything else that needs to be, maybe conclusions. I don't know.
Is it worth at this point combining all the sections into one document, or at some point so that we can have a final editing committee go over it? Or am I being ahead of the game? Because I know Tom has been talking about trying to get this thing done for the fall and put it before the mayor and the city council.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like we're going to need at least one more meeting to just have of the language. It would be great if in our September meeting we could just have like a rough draft that we could then hand off to 3 people to sit down over a weekend and like
agreed.
Just like make sure that the language is consistent and that we're repeating ourselves enough times but not too many times, kind of stuff. But I think we need to get it. So like just on my sections, like I need to take another stab at these. The user profiles, we need to flesh that out a little bit. We haven't touched the executive summary or the conclusion. I feel like we might be able to now because I feel like the content is largely there. You guys agree with that?
Yeah. We've captured the data. We just need to get it in order here. So some of the sections are pretty close right now. I know the one that Dan did, I was very impressed with. I think that just needs minor editing. I think the section 5 that I did on the field visits, I don't think that needs much to do.
I'm about halfway through the franchise agreement. So I hope to have a little bit about that for
Okay.
our next meeting.
Yeah, and I mean, section 7 and 8 are pretty close too, so we're getting there.
Yeah.
Paul, if we're making any changes to our sections, do you want us to somehow feed them back to you? Because have you done
Yes, please.
substantial editing in any of these?
No, I haven't done anything
Oh, okay.
substantial.
Okay.
Basically, what I was thinking about was I was going to go through them and edit them and kind of send them out to each person who wrote them and get, you know, your own feedback. But if you're changing them also at the same time, I mean, you know,
I mean, that might be good to have one person functioning as the, you know, the hub, as it were. So
Yeah.
I don't have any objections to that.
yeah.
Anybody else?
When we say edits, like, you know,
I just mean things we've discussed in these meetings that might have been
right.
in, and we may not, if we're doing them outside of this document, we may not have the benefit of
Right,
this.
because like there's these notes in the margins. So if I want to go back next weekend and look at this, can I access this document with the notes in the margins? Or
I
how
don't know.
Can you PDF it with the notes in
Yeah.
the margin and send out a PDF to everybody? Is that?
I could do it as a PDF for sure. Worst case, I'll just copy and paste it into something else, like a Word
I
document.
just want to see the, I'd love to see the comments, and it's probably, the PDF
Yeah.
would probably capture that where they are. And
I'm sure I can PDF it. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, whichever way is easiest. I just I just want to make sure that this that all this feedback does get back to us so that we can act on it.
For sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
Okay.
I just had a personal note. I don't know if we're gonna, I will be here for the September meeting. I won't be here in the October meeting because the baby is being born that day, whether he likes it or not.
Oh, where's your priorities, man?
I know. Well, I do. I mean, social justice and equity among above all things. But you know,
Congratulations, Jason.
I could potentially be there. It's a 5:30 a.m. appointment, so you know, I could be here at 6 o'clock at night if you need me.
We'll let you take a nap.
I'm not doing the work, so it's not me.
So,
Yeah, I think
So-
we'll survive.
yeah. All right. So, Paul, I mean, some of these sections need cleaning up, like section 10. So, I mean, I can condense all those comments and other things and then send that to you. And then at that point, if you want to edit it, and you and I and Jason can figure it out from there.
Sure.
And same with what Tom was just saying about his sections. You're going to clean up 11 and 12. I'm just trying to figure out, you know, are we going to edit this thing and then Paul's going to take over? Or is Paul going to start making it? I don't want this turning into total chaos here with multiple versions of the same document. So
I think Paul will just feed them back to him as they're ready, and then he can replace. As long as we
Okay.
have that PDF of this document, of his document, any edits get fed back into our originals.
all right.
And then
Well, I plan on actually working on that section tomorrow, being as it looks like we're going to get rained out big time. So I'll have some time and I'll clean up section 10. So,
All right. Yeah. So Kev, send me what you've got after you
Okay.
play around with it, and we'll just update it in the document.
great. That sounds good.
Anything else? Like I said, I have this week off. I plan on doing as much work on this as I can, even if it's just editing in some of the things that we put in as feedback or we had, you know, for clarity.
Yep.
I'll take a crack or start up an executive summary and a conclusions section, and you know, any section that I look at and I'm like, oh, we need to change this or something, I'll just reach out to whoever wrote it and we'll talk about it. And then
Yep.
before the next meeting, we'll have a pretty solid draft that we can talk about and do just kind of a final review. I think makes sense.
That works for
Can I
me.
ask if, you know, we're thinking whatever shape the document's in for September, could we get it a few days before as a, you know, as a non-editable copy, you know, just for us
Yeah.
to read through
Yeah, that'd be great.
and
Yeah,
sort of
that
see
makes
a
sense.
snapshot, so we can really have a
So when is the next meeting? We can actually pick a date, you know, to have lock this thing up, exit full screen.
September 7th, right?
Okay.
No,
I'm
that's
looking.
Labor Day.
Oh,
Okay, 6,
sure
7. Yeah.
is. So do we want to just do the 12th then? That's,
A Saturday?
Well, wait a minute.
oh wait, no, I'm looking at October. Yeah,
There we go.
September 14th.
So, wait a minute. No. September 5th is a Monday, but that's Labor Day. So we're talking September 12th is the following Monday.
Oh, you're looking at the wrong year, or let's see. The 14th is a Monday, correct?
Yes.
Yes, the 14th is the first Monday that isn't Labor Day.
Oh, bingo. I'm sorry. I'm looking at October too. It must be a virus. Yeah. All right. So we're good for the 14th then?
Well,
And so what would be a good freeze date for the document or to send something out, like the September 9th, that Wednesday, or Thursday the 10th?
Let's do it by Labor Day.
yeah,
I mean,
if-
figure it out.
it was going to be the meeting on the 7th. If we could have a sort of final draft to Paul by, the 7th, and then we
Okay.
review
I'm
it.
all right with that. Okay.
That way, if
fine.
anybody slipped a day or two, we had a full week, so.
Yeah.
All right. Final draft due on the 7th. All right.
Okay.
9/7. Next meeting is 9/14.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good to me.
Awesome.
Great. Cool.
All right. So any new business to talk about today? Anybody guys got anything? No. All right. So with that, I think our meeting's come to a close. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Tom.
Second.
Kevin seconds. Jason,
Aye.
Tom Peak,
Aye.
yeah. Dan,
Hi.
Tom Ellsbury,
Hi.
Dan,
Oh, aye.
and Kevin. All right. All right.
All right.
So I guess that's unanimous. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Talking soon.